Chiquinha, Chiquinha.
Go check out the room.
Chiquinha.
Alright, so welcome to Get Sidetracked, and I'm in New Zealand. This is going to be a coastal New Zealand ride, so you're going to be going Coromandel to Thames. And this is not too far from Auckland. Coromandel is maybe 4 hours away. Thames is maybe 2.5 hours away. And so starting out in Coromandel, I'm just going to show briefly a little bit of what the town looks like. I do have a separate video all for Coromandel, and I also have a separate video all for Thames. So if you want to see more of that in more detail, I definitely have that for you to see as well. Again, like all my files, it's always going to be hashtag Get Sidetracked and New Zealand, all one word. And you should be able to see it in a link that's directly below this picture. Coromandel, there's boats, so that's what that scene is right there. There's lots of kind of a shipping area. So I kind of saw lots of fishermen types and also a lot of tourists too. So there's a mix of fishermen, locals, and tourists, and maybe some other types as well, probably farmers and things like that. So okay, so I'm driving out of the town right now, and then here's where the video really starts. And basically, you have about an hour of just gorgeously beautiful scenery going down the coastline from Coromandel all the way down to Thames. As an aside, I'm going to speak over it, but if you just want to hear a little bit of what it sounds like, just this is what it was, just kind of wind. So this is why well, here you go. There's definitely certainly a beauty to that, the sound of the wind and the sounds of, sometimes you can even hear the ocean, if I'm driving slowly through some of these curves. But I'm just going to talk over it. Probably if you're in the car yourself, you'd probably be listening to the radio or music. If you wanted to, you could also do that too. I don't mind however you want to enjoy the video. So if you want to find some of your favorite music and play it while you watch this, that's great too. But I'm just going to share about New Zealand and some of my time there. The structure that I just can't believe how beautiful it is. You can see, the ocean like that, just the bay that's in between. Over on that other side is Auckland, by the way, which is too far to see, and there's too many islands between the two. But I think that you actually can see it in different spaces, for sure, different places. I wasn't able to see it on this particular ride, but it's there, it's over there. But yeah, from here, this location is probably about 4 hours away. By car, driving from Coromandel town to Auckland. And it's just beautiful. Actually, this is like this almost the entire way. You're going to see lots of curves and just kind of, the way it overlooks the bay like that. But I'm going to be, I just kind of want to share one of the structures. There's a certain sign that I saw once that said, write the book that you want to read. And I think it's also true for travel-related things. Create the video that you would rather hear or see. And this is the kind of stuff that I always want to see. It's really hard to find. Like I might look at some videos about New Zealand, but it's always high-end stuff. Like the expensive hotels, the expensive restaurants. Where all the maybe more of the wealth is attracted to. I'm not saying there's not wealth in Coromandel. There is, but there's also kind of a mix of everything as well. But this is the experience that everybody can experience, like no matter what kind of income you have, you can always go down a road in a car or a bus or another way and see these views. And this is the kind of stuff that I like to see. This is the kind of stuff that I want to talk about as well. So New Zealand, you can see it's pretty lush and green. From a traveler perspective, you really can't go wrong in New Zealand, pretty much anywhere you go. I was kind of amazed. I went over to the other side of Auckland as well, and that's going to be in another video. It's going to be called Piha or Kare Kare. I think I pronounced that right. But it's basically the western side from Auckland, and this side is the eastern side. And the western side is just as beautiful. Actually, everywhere in New Zealand was quite amazing. I also have another video on Auckland, and one of the things that I commented on the Auckland video, and I think I want to say it here too, is that Auckland is a little bit, not a little bit, it's very spread out, but it's because there's bays and water and mountains and ocean. There's just so much gorgeous geography that it kind of makes sense that people wouldn't automatically move directly downtown and live in the urban environment when you have so much beauty all around you. And I saw this on both sides of Auckland, the east side and the west side. I got up a little bit north as well, and just all the way around, it's just lush and green and kind of this different kind of topography, geography, things that we're not so familiar with in the United States or in most other countries. You don't really have this same mix of, plant life and beauty. New Zealand is very environmentally conscious, and you can see why. I also was listening to a lot of radio while I was there, and they also kind of talked about that. Well, it's easy to say that when you have so much beauty, and it makes sense. But I guess the argument for them was that, like people that are in New Zealand, they kind of waste products and waste things just the same as anybody else, which is probably true, but since their population is so much smaller and their landmass is so much larger, that their impact on the environment is very limited comparatively, but their lifestyles of individual New Zealanders are very, very much like they are in any other country, United States or Australia. That being said, I don't want to detract anything from New Zealand because it's just such a beautiful place, and I think I'm, coming from an American perspective, I'm going to connect it to the Pacific Northwest. It's just very environmentally conscious. There's a lot of consciousness, social conscious awareness, talking about neighborhoods. I'd heard a lot about like gender politics on the radio, things that are, very progressive and, thinking about, the future and how to build a good society and things like that. And I felt that New Zealand really embodied that quite well. Just, the pristineness, just there's enough money. You can see these roads are quite nice. The society is built quite well, and I think that's going to keep attracting people to New Zealand. It's I think I heard recently it's maybe up to 5 million people now, but you compare that to somewhere like the state of Michigan, which is 10 million people or 11 million people or whatever it is, and but New Zealand is its own country. So, but anyways, it's not to detract because it's just kind of doing a little bit comparisons, but yeah, New Zealand is an amazing place, and you can definitely see it in the scenery. And I'm just gonna be silent for a little bit. I just want you to just kind of soak in the feeling, So take in the green lushness, the green grass that's kind of on the side. That's has a nice, beautiful spring-like color to it, and the clouds that are kind of just stationary. Like everything else is moving on your left and your right, but then those clouds are just kind of like hovering over, kind of in a beautiful way. And I think that's kind of embodies something too, because I've heard that New Zealand kind of has a lot of cloud cover and some kind of misty rain, and occasionally just kind of like the Pacific Northwest, there would be quick drizzle, but I don't remember anybody having umbrellas or a raincoat or anything like that, which is the same that you would see when you're in Portland or Seattle, Washington. This kind of that tree is beautiful right there. Actually, all those trees that kind of stick out like that. All right, so I just kind of want to give you a little bit of sense of this area. So this is called the Coromandel area. So this is a place that a lot of people from Auckland would like to drive up to on the weekends, and I was pretty lucky. So this particular day, I'm actually going back into Auckland, and the traffic wasn't too bad. I think a lot of it is because I caught it just right. I think this was on a Monday morning, or yeah, it's a Monday morning. So yeah, you can kind of see that it's quite peaceful, beautiful. Like random houses that are quite sparsely populated, the way that the structure is. There's also, I just kind of want to say, like in New Zealand, there's this road is quite curvy, and also I had to slow down at different spots. One of the things that was kind of interesting that I observed was I think the speed limit was pretty much always 100 kilometers an hour almost everywhere that I went in New Zealand, but a lot of times there's all these other signs that would say, caution, 45 kilometers per hour around the curve, things like that. And so I thought that was kind of interesting because, why waste your police resources on, oh, here we go, this is like a little one lane right here. So there was kind of stuff like that, and I went back into a 2-lane, but there was a stoplight right there that would stop that particular one from going. So and then you take turns. But I kind of like that, that awareness is like, okay, why waste police resources trying to capture people, going over, 45 or 55. United States, basically like every single curve, oh wait, I'm going to play something real quick. Ah! Sorry. So, okay. I just thought it was kind of funny. I only did that once, so don't worry. I won't do it again. And if you do, you'll hear all the wind with it along as well. So I just kind of wanted to surprise you when I was actually recording this. which is going to tie into another topic I want to talk about too. I'm going to go back into the speed limit, but basically the United States, there's a lot of resources trying to capture people going a little bit over the speed limit, when it seems like the police, could be utilized in a much better way than just policing people on a speed limit and curvy roads and things like that. So anyways, I kind of like the way that it seems like New Zealand is just so socially conscious and so socially aware of things, and kind of processes things and thinks of things through more thoroughly, and uses their resources much better than in a way that a lot of us would hope that our respective countries might be like. Okay, so I'm going to tie back into the part, and actually one of the things I really like about this new media sources, YouTube and things like that. So please support my YouTube channel as well. If you like it, comment on it. Tell me something. If you are listening, just type in the words All Blacks or I love the All Blacks. That'll let me know that people are actually watching my videos. Sometimes people might like or comment or tune out pretty quickly. I just have no idea, really. I mean, there's some analytics that I'm still studying. I'm still new to the process of the YouTube world. I've been on it for 2 years, but I'm just getting more heavily involved into it. And I actually kind of just want to get into the social media as well, like the way that the structure of things are changing so much, which is something that's kind of connecting to the YouTube of New Zealand and how progressive it is as well. But the structure of the world is changing. Before it was always very corporate sponsored. The companies, they create who's going to be watching what content on what TV shows, and how they're going to frame it. So travel was always connected to somebody sponsoring these TV shows, hotels or corporations and things like that. But now with YouTube, anybody can create anything. So I'm basically creating this kind of content, and I need your kind of support as well. So if you're interested in individual people creating content, support it, share it, let other people know that it exists. This is the only way to to get a stronger voice with people. I think New Zealand people seem to be so socially conscious about things, and so have such a great awareness of how this kind of structure works, that I hope that you can support it as well. So okay, so Get Sidetracked on YouTube, but I'm sure that you're here to hear about New Zealand, so I'm going to talk about that, as well as continue to show you the beauty of this beautiful coastal drive. In New Zealand, one of the big stories that I was hearing on the radio was there was a lot of stuff about gender politics, which is also really interesting as well. There was a female backpacker from the UK that was murdered by someone in New Zealand, and it was kind of tied into Tinder as well, another social media application for young people dating, or any age really. And so it opened up a lot of politics, which is quite interesting, about the politics of dating and social media, and also about this crime that occurred in New Zealand, and the entire nation kind of got very caught up in it. And I really like that. I just really enjoyed watching a nation of people who cared that much about a young British backpacker and a horrible fate that happened to them, and being so devastated by it. So they were kind of talking about like the role of men and women, which was interesting. The gender, and just how a lot of people can relate to that, which is another thing I really loved a lot about New Zealand and Australia, is that a lot of the young people, they travel extensively. So, people, they go to the UK on a 2-year work visa, they get to see Europe, they get to explore the world. A lot of Kiwis, New Zealanders or Kiwis, they get to work and live in Australia, and there's a nice exchange between the two countries. So I just felt like, New Zealand and Australians, they have a nice awareness of the world, and just, like how to be a responsible individual in the world. So that news story was very interesting for me to listen to, because a lot of times when I listen to United States politics, it's significantly different. There's a lot of, well, you're probably aware of it on certain levels, and I don't want to get into those kind of politics, but yeah, this is interesting. So right here I was able to pull in to the side just a little bit. I don't know if you noticed, but there was a car that was behind me. If you were aware of it, they were pretty close to me, and I think later I learned that this is actually my second day in New Zealand, so later I learned that I should pull over a little bit when there's someone's behind me, and I probably should have pulled over to the left and just let them go around, but instead I turned to the right, and if you heard, you wouldn't have heard it, but he actually honked at me when I So I think I kind of threw him off because I did a quick ride, but I was trying to give him some space to go as well. Anyways, this is the view from this area. So actually, I have some other photos where I was able to zoom in on this tree. It's quite beautiful, especially with my other camera, the zoom camera. But I'll just let you imagine it. And now I'm back on the road again. But yeah, the social consciousness of New Zealanders. One of the things I also noticed too is they have a lot of their media. They look at a lot of people out and around the world, which I think is why they take back some of the best. Kind of wish United States did that as well, but it doesn't. It's more internal. But New Zealand, I'd always hear things that are going on in Australia, the UK, and the United States. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some things from Canada as well. I didn't hear them while I was there, but I'm sure that New Zealand probably compares itself at times to Canada as well, and I think Canada's another nation that also tries to, think on a socially conscious, larger level, larger international level. I don't mean to tie anything to politics, because I'm sure there's lots of people with different politics, but I'm just saying that I kind of appreciated that that New Zealand has some of that. But the way they would look at news stories, so they would watch things in different places, and I think that they were able to kind of examine and reflect on a lot of different systems and a lot of different, structures and a lot of different governments and how they run their nations and how they run their people, manage their people, support or things like that. So anyways, I just kind of felt like New Zealanders were able to have a really nice balance with that. Just kind of marveling at the beauty of this right here. But yeah, driving down these roads, there's a lot of curves, and actually this is one big long curve. Looks like a kind of a horseshoe, and I'm going in like some kind of little inland part that's coming in from the ocean. And yeah, so I'm still going around that curve, which is getting more like a horseshoe every second, and I'm still moving to the right, going around something. Amazing. And I'm slowing down quite a bit in a lot of these curves as well. Like you might not be able to tell so well from my driving, but I am. All right, so yeah, you can see those signs right there too. Kind of like gonna be doing a lot of curve taking. So actually, I also got into Wellington, which I also want to talk about a little bit too, and I have quite a few videos that are going to be coming on Wellington, so you can, again, hashtag Get Sidetracked New Zealand and see everything, or you can go specifically to the Wellington, hashtag Get Sidetracked Wellington. They'll be on both of those. And but anyways, Wellington had this really perfect setting of a city. It's like you have mountains and ocean and beaches and amazing views, but you also have all this density of a nice city with a nice structure to it of like kind of streets that are parallel to each other in kind of a gridlock fashion, and you're able to walk up and down them quite extensively, and up to I think it took like almost an hour to go from one side to the other. And even I used to live in larger cities like New York City, and like an hour is about enough that you want to walk one way anyway. So like you walk kind of almost endlessly, it feels like in New York, but man, the beauty right here is amazing. But yeah, you wouldn't get this in New York. By the way, I'm from Michigan originally, which is quite flat, so I wouldn't have seen even anything remotely like this until I was I never left Michigan until I was 18, and and even just briefly at that time, and then the first time I saw mountains was at 22 years old, and that was I think 18. I went into Ohio from Michigan, and a little bit into Ontario because it's right next to me. It was next to me, and but yeah, Pennsylvania is the first time I ever saw mountains. So that was at 22 years old. So if I would have saw this at any time before I was 22, I would have been completely blown away and amazed, and just wouldn't have been able to believe that this kind of beauty would have existed. But as a young person, even at 22, I was just kind of blown away by the mountains. When I first time I saw the Appalachian Mountains, I was pretty awestruck by that. But yeah, this view is amazing. I'm kind of debating if I even want to talk about the Hobbit, but New Zealand has a lot of Lord of the Rings tourism, and I'm just thinking that maybe Lord of the Rings fans are maybe relating to some of this geography of how beautiful it is. But I never saw the movie. Um, but a lot of people kept talking about it, like in the hostels, and just everybody assumed that that's what I would be visiting New Zealand to do or see, and I wasn't. But if you are a fan, there's the beauty that you're looking for right here, and those trees. Wow, so unique and so different to me. So I just want to let this go through a little bit because I'm going to be going along the ocean. But yeah, I'm probably just as awestruck watching this again now as I was the first time when I was actually experiencing it. But yeah, you'd come down close into the water like this, and yeah, look how narrow those roads are too. Got a cliff on one side. It's I definitely want to be talking more a little bit, but I'm just gonna enjoy this view with you, viewer. And that tree right there. It's like some of these trees, they kind of cut them so that they look like they're like half a tree in a way. The ones on the side of the road, they don't want to cut them down, thankfully. That one's kind of growing almost to the side. But yeah, you have all these little mountain or these little rock boulders too that are just in the water like that. Those cliffs, like right there, that's going to be eroding someday. I don't know how they're going to build the road when it does. Maybe they have to reclaim some of the land, I guess. Yeah, I'm slowing down quite a bit to take some of these curves too. Yeah. Yeah, you see those little mirrors right there? Those little mirrors are when it gets the corners get so sharp that you need a mirror just to be able to see what's coming around on the other side. Yeah, those trees. There's like those little orange flowers like that, orange or red or whatever that is. Saw quite a bit in that New Zealand. There's a name for it, and some of my friends in Wellington met two people down there who I'd known who were visiting Macau, so they were telling me about those trees, and yeah, those are so photogenic as well. But yeah, there's a whole different set of trees and kind of wildlife, and no snakes and no poisonous animals, like kind of opposite of Australia. No disrespect to Australia, because that was another country I really loved visiting, which was on the same trip, but I won't take away from New Zealand by talking about it. Yeah. Somebody heading up north with their campers. Yeah, I want to share more, but I'm just going to take in some of more of these views with you. But yeah, if you like it, just make sure you put a like on my video, and also comment, just say anything. So you love All Blacks, or love Coromandel, love New Zealand. Yeah, just comment on just anything, because it'll put me in the algorithm, and then it'll make my videos so that I know that I'm actually going to get viewers, because once a few people post, then it goes in the algorithm a little bit, and then when people search for New Zealand, these narrow roads right here. See, and there's the other cars waiting on the other side like that too. So I'm actually kind of surprised at how well they also are able to upkeep their roads. I've traveled in lots of other places too, so I remember like when I was in Peru once a long time ago, there was this big massive boulder that would just look like, who knows how long it'd been there, but they just don't really have the money to go around and pick them up. And I think there's another time I was in Peru where I have a few different stories about that, in Bolivia too, where campesinos threw rocks down the road and you couldn't get around them because they were protesting the government and stuff like that. Yeah, you don't have any of those issues in New Zealand. Like, this road is just so clean and well kept. So like I'm sure rocks must fall down onto this road, but I haven't. I think it'd be pretty hard pressed to find any. Yeah, just I mentioned that I was going to be talking quite a bit about New Zealand, but instead I'm just kind of enthralled by the beauty of this road trip right here. Okay. Ordinarily I would stop the video and I would restart again with something to say, but I kind of think you want to enjoy this too, so. Even like that tree, it's actually the roots are quite far below, so they have to come all the way up to get to that level. Yeah, so now we have these little, okay, so I'm going to start talking a little bit more. So there's like a little bit of kind of sand and a little bit of beach occasionally. And I just saw some mailboxes to the left, but can you imagine if you lived in one of those places? Right on the left, and occasionally I would see stuff like that. I see people that could just walk across and have that access to that kind of beauty on a daily basis. I'm just going to kind of share a little bit about my own stuff. So I grew up in near the Great Lakes of Michigan, so I moved around quite extensively, but from time to time when I was a kid, I was able to live close to the lake, and but it was all flat and like more cornfields kind of stuff. So I would see this view where it's kind of like the Great Lakes has this endlessness to it, where it's like an ocean where you can't see to the other side, and this has the same kind of beauty to it, but this is actually an ocean. But you also have the beauty of the geography as well. So yeah, when I grew up, it was all flat, and these roads would have been straight because, okay, so I'm pulling over right now and letting this guy go by. That's the way that you're supposed to do it. Okay. If you do try to get to New Zealand, it's quite far from pretty much everywhere. But I was able to see some people on flights. I went from New Zealand I went back to Hong Kong, so I went through Fiji Airways from Auckland to Fiji to Hong Kong when I went back home, and I live in Macau. There's quite a few Americans, surprisingly, that were on my flight from Auckland to Fiji. So they must take Fiji Airways to get from the United States to New Zealand. Must be one of many ways. I also saw some flights to Santiago of Chile, of all places, which I didn't expect. So it kind of made me think that maybe South America and New Zealand, there's some international connection there, that people are able to travel back and forth in a way that I didn't quite expect. So I'm guessing that must have been a flight that went direct from Santiago. It must have, Santiago to Auckland. So there's definitely some interesting ways to get there. I mean, if you're from North America, you're probably going to be flying in from maybe through Honolulu or through Fiji, like I did. But probably the most common way that people get back and forth is through Australia. There's a lot of flights that I would imagine that go all the way to Australia from all over the world. For one, Auckland as well, I'm sure, but maybe Australia even a little bit more. Probably a lot of people connect the two countries, anyways, like I did. By the way, it was about let me see. I flew from Hong Kong through Kuala Lumpur to Australia, which was, I think, maybe, I think it was like a 9-hour flight from Malaysia to Sydney, I think it was. Then Auckland to Fiji was 3, and then 3 or 9 more Fiji to Hong Kong. So that would have been a 12-hour trip from Auckland via Fiji to Hong Kong. I can't imagine it being much shorter if you went direct, probably 8, maybe 9, 10. Yeah, right here you have that. Actually, it's amazing. New Zealand, there's so sparsely populated, so you have all this beauty like this, where if you went to another place, a lot of that stuff could be carved up by, resorts or corporations or private property. And you'd probably have stuff like right on the ocean, like blocking your view. But all this stuff is like, it looks. I think it's all public. Different places have different policies on that, but it just looks like it's public the way that all these cars are able to park and have access to everything with their trailers and bring out their boats. So it looks like it's all, at least that spot is anyways. But a lot of it looks like it's not privately owned anyways. So I think it's I don't know what the laws are with that, but New Zealand. Comment on that if you want. Any kind of comment you can put on it is great. So I'm kind of going through a small town on the way between the two right now, between Coromandel and Thames. You could probably look it up on a map and see what it is, but I think this was the biggest little town that I went through, but I think there's another one that gets closer to Thames as well. But it doesn't take long to get through it though. All right, so the other thing I want to talk about too is the people, the Kiwis, New Zealanders. They're great. They're really, really friendly. So, I think New Zealand, maybe because the population is small, but there's kind of maybe it's also because of the education. I don't know, but I think actually maybe a combination of both. So, but basically, like as soon as I came into the airport, I had conversations with the rent-a-car guy. I was trying to find the rent-a-car place and yeah, so that there's a woman that was kind of trying to help me out a lot, and just actually everywhere. The hostel was really talkative. The front desk guy, and I'm not saying that other places aren't like that. Actually a lot of Americans are the same way. They talk quite a bit and they kind of catch you in all kinds of situations. And but New Zealanders are kind of the same. They're also just really talkative, really friendly. Like they make time for you basically. So even when I went into Coromandel, I had like a fish and chips there. So like the main, there's a woman who's the owner of the shop. I looked like she was the owner and the manager, and she was just so kind of out there, like in a really friendly way, and just she was trying to close and trying to close everything down and lock the door and things like that. But she was so friendly and outgoing, and then other people kept coming by like, oh, is this closed? And I don't know, just like the way the people are, just seems like you kind of have a nice, healthy interaction with people all the time, which I think is good for society. It's that it seems like it should be normal, status quo. But anyways, if you like that kind of stuff, and a lot of people do, New Zealand is filled with it. Just kind of good people you can have a good chat with and interact with. I've also kind of heard that it might be a little bit socially, not socially, but a little bit socially reserved. But I didn't really encounter that. I think sometimes people make New Zealand out to be a little bit like a Scandinavia, a little bit, but or Canada kind of has the same reputation. But Canadians are also quite friendly too, and probably a little bit socially reserved at times. But anyways. Let's get back into the speed again. So here we go. We're going to take another curve. I have to slow down quite a bit again. Really had to slow down there. Go along those cliff sides right to the left of me. And now we're back up out in the open, and I can speed up, and I have that kind of unlimited speed limit where I can kind of go as fast as I want. As long as I can take the curves, all right. Go ahead. That's the I waste police resources, and so yeah, that one said 40 kilometers per hour to take that curve. Let's see. All right, so there I am slowing down again. Yeah, another thing I want to share too is literature too. So the bookstores in New Zealand, they're everywhere. So later when I go into the city of Thames or Thames, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it properly. That's going to be in a separate video, but I do find quite a few bookstores actually in this small little no-name place, and I saw many in Wellington as well, and I kind of think they're all over New Zealand. But part of what I like about that is they're basically supporting regional writers and regional literature. So I could have collected a number of books, but I just didn't have room in my suitcase. But I was thinking of collecting all kinds of like stuff about how they explore New Zealand, like all kinds of stuff that I can't really find very well outside of New Zealand, but they're publishing it inside the country, of course. But it's like, man, if I lived somewhere like that, I could just really indulge myself in their literature scene, because I think it's probably quite rich, and also, like a lot of, in the United States, there's a lot of money that kind of rules everything with corporations, and they kind of dictate, what is published and what's not published, and you have to be basically like you have to really sell your product just to be able to get somebody to look at it, But I think in a place like New Zealand, where there's 5 million people, I'm going to guess that they probably have some pretty interesting literature, because they're probably allowing a lot of different voices to get through the system, and they're not making a lot of money out of it. I'm sure there's a little bit of money to be made because there's a lot of bookstores, but it's not like to the same level. So I'm going to guess there's probably a lot of interesting voices in New Zealand. And when I was looking around the bookstores, I'm like, oh man, like this whole, these large local, tables, basically with, like 60 books that have just been released. It's like, oh man, like this would be an amazing place to be a writer, because you could get into the literary scene quite easily, and then you'd have a good local readership, and again, it's not like making money. The country's only 5 million people, but still, it's just basically kind of an open place where you can support a lot of that stuff. Where, like in my home state of Michigan, good luck. Like there's maybe a little bit of it, but not much. But when I go out to the Pacific Northwest, Seattle, Portland, places like that, they really support their local literary scenes and different artists and things like that, and I think the government also supports it too, which is like different cultural organizations. Okay, here's a trailer park to the right, so this must be the other town that I'm kind of coming into. So I think this is I don't think I'm coming into Thames yet, but or Thames. I'm probably mispronouncing it, and probably somebody's getting irritated by my mispronunciation of it. Correct me too. Put that on my comments. But anyways, the the different art scenes, so like I know the Canadian government, Australian government, I'm sure New Zealand government, they support that stuff, and the United States does to a certain degree, but the country is just so massive that even if they do, it's just like it doesn't really affect many local writers in their local states, it's just kind of a drop in the bucket basically when you have 300 million people in the U.S. compared to like 5 million. But anyways, it's just little stuff like that. I like that kind of stuff. I like that New Zealand is able to support that, and to just like that ocean right there, like that. But yeah, New Zealand is a really easy place to like. Like I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that they didn't like it, or they kind of going back and forth in the camera. I'm not really sure why at this particular spot. Must be a reason, but I'm basically holding the camera outside of my window most of the time. I'm driving with one hand, by the way, but it's well worth it because I'm getting some great footage, and it's not always easy to go around these curves, so I think that's why I'm slowing down, always one-handed like that. Yeah, also if you're in New Zealand, please, I know you guys support your anything that's New Zealand related, so support my video too. Let some New Zealanders look at it. Maybe you can see an outside perspective. I think New Zealanders, just based on the British backpacker story, I think New Zealanders are really like it when visitors come, and I felt very welcome and very received very well by everyone I encountered. So I kind of have a feeling that maybe a video like this would also be quite well received, because I think I'm probably one of many, many voices of people that visit New Zealand and are quite awed and quite amazed by this kind of scenery and the people and the way that your nation is structured and set up. So yeah, share my video too, and let people know that I like your country as well. Okay, right now I'm going, that was a little passing lane to the left. There's a few of those that I would see, but there's not many opportunities to pass around a person, because of the geography. I mean, like, look at that. Like, where are you going to build a third lane, But I guess that's why you slow down a little bit and let the person behind you come around you. Yeah, and actually even it's funny because, a lot of times in the past I would have thought, watching a video of me just going down the road wouldn't be that interesting, but it is. Like I'm watching this again and I'm like, yeah, that was pretty beautiful place to be going down the road. And be able to capture that, putting my camera out the window like that, and capturing this whole thing for about an hour. Amazing. You just saw a street sign, a sign for some kind of village is coming up, but I don't see one. But I'm also curious if I have that right with 100 kilometers, because I'm kind of watching for that sign too, but I haven't seen any in quite a long time. But I think when I was in New Zealand, I think I remember kind of looking for those, and there wasn't very many. So I'm just kind of wondering if I have that accurate, if it was actually 100 kilometers an hour or not. I think I did see that in other parts of New Zealand, but I didn't know if it was universal everywhere, or if maybe there's different partitions. Like in the United States, different states will have different miles per hour limits. So maybe New Zealand might have something similar. Different parts might have different zones or structures. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, comment on that too. Like, the more comments I can have, the better. So I hope I make a few mistakes once in a while so people can correct me and then get more in the algorithm. Nothing wrong with that. Just say some positive stuff too, for sure. But, I think it doesn't really matter, positive or negative, whatever creates discussion. And I'm kind of awestruck again by the beauty of this. I can see why a lot of people go up to Coromandel. Just to drive alone is well worth it. Yeah, actually another thing I want to talk about too is the Maori language and the Maori population and the people. It's another thing that's really impressive too about New Zealand. It's just the progressiveness, the way that they're thinking about how to support and encourage and to appreciate other cultures besides just the Anglo culture, so like, the way that they have, the way that Maori now is in the schools, the language is in the schools, and, anybody who lives in New Zealand can study it and get familiar with it and kind of keep it alive and keep it going and make sure that it flourishes and make sure that it stays part of the New Zealand identity for the long term. So I like the fact that, New Zealand thinks in these terms, because this is a lot of stuff that they talk about throughout United States, Canada, Australia, but you don't really see it in play very often. They talk about it in the academic world, but it seldom follows through in actual policy of the governments to actually implement those things. But in New Zealand, they actually did. And I'm not saying that it's perfect for Maori. I don't really know, actually, to be honest, but I know at least that the government supports these kind of things, and the people must be supporting it as well to have it to have a what is it, 15% Maori, I think, or 18%. So that means that maybe 82 or 84 are not Maori. So it's very easy for them to just not think about it, or not really care, or not really have the representation in the government to say like, oh, let's support this, let's encourage it. So I really appreciate that that Kiwis and New Zealanders think in those ways. Like I'm probably coming across as a very progressive liberal person myself when I say those things, but I think it's something that we should at least acknowledge and appreciate, because you don't really see that come to play very often in on a governmental level, on a large governmental level for a nation. Kind of getting caught up in the beauty of the New Zealand drive again. Yeah, and actually, like this drive was pretty amazing. Later, I also have some piha and karakari. I don't have an hour of it like I do in this particular one, but I have a little bit anyways, and I'll definitely show that too. And that has completely other beauty too. So this isn't like the only look that you see in New Zealand. I can't even imagine, because the country is so long and there's like penguins all the way to the south, so I just can't even imagine. And there's 2 different islands too, so that means that there's probably different geography as well, and just just how far it is from north to south. So just take in mind, this is just one little sliver of the country, just a tiny sliver, and the whole country is basically on, you know, coastline. So kind of reminds me a lot of the beauty of Japan. New Zealand, you know, rivals it. I mean, there's probably some of the two most beautiful places of, well, there's many in the world, but those two are very special and unique because of their geography and their kind of slight isolation. Well, New Zealand is quite isolated. Japan, somewhat so as well. So I think I might be coming into Thames a little bit. So what I'm going to be doing soon is in 5 minutes I'm going to cut off this one, and then later I'll walk around the small town of Thames, and I think I just walk with the camera, so I'll probably do a voiceover on that one as well, just like I am with this one. And I'm going to just do a little shout out for my station again. So just, you know, if you're from New Zealand and you support it, you know, share this, let other people see it, let people know that, you know, people appreciate your country and your nation and what you're doing there. And yeah, in turn, share a little bit and support, you know, like you have your, you know, wonderful culture supporting locals, you know. Yeah, so, you know, support, you know, the YouTube station as well, and make some comments, and if you like it, you know, let me know. I'd appreciate that just the same as I'm letting you know that I appreciate what you have going there in your country and how beautiful it is, and just how varied and I'm, you know, feel very fortunate that I was able to visit and be able to share it as well through YouTube and through this channel. So we have a nice medium to be able to share things these days, and this is my way of being able to share it with as many people as possible that I can get to see this and view it. So yeah, we're definitely coming into the town of Thames, I believe. I mean, I might have cut off the video well before Thames, and if I have, you know, let that be known too, and I'll make it a sticky highlighter up at the top of this channel, of this. But yeah, you see all these houses right here have the coastline right there. Be able to wake up and hear the ocean every morning. Like, I wonder how many New Zealanders get to do that. Probably quite a few. Which kind of makes sense why Auckland is so spread out. You know, a lot of people want to live up in the mountains or in the ocean like that, near the ocean, next to the ocean. The other thing I just kind of want to talk about too is like when I get to the town of Thames, and actually it's like about 8 minutes away, but it's 8 minutes away from when I stopped the video. But anyways, like even that little town, like I was kind of surprised because, you know, I know of Auckland and Wellington, and you know, these kind of big cities, and I'm kind of used to small towns not being that interesting. But then when I went to that particular small town of Thames, it's like, wow, this is kind of cool. Like, it's just a no-name town, no tourists. There's no reason to really go there. And I was kind of walking around. I'm like, man, I could live in somewhere like this. Like, I can, you know, like I can see where, you know, usually I'm kind of thinking, oh, I got to live in the big city, you know, like Auckland or, you know, Hong Kong, Macau, or Sao Paulo. I used to live there, and New York, you know, Seoul, Osaka. But I've lived in a lot of large cities, and I'm always kind of thinking, oh yeah, the cities that kind of have everything that I want. Anyways, you know, small towns maybe not as much. Nothing against small towns. I just but anyways, when I went to, you know, these little New Zealand towns, I'm like, oh yeah, this is kind of cool. Like this kind of has all these different restaurants, all these bookstores. Like, I could just walk around and just go to different bookstores alone, and this is just some random small town in the middle of New Zealand. You know, like, I don't think it's known as a literary place with bookstores. Who knows? I mean, I just don't know enough about that town, but I just kind of came across it by random. But I just have a feeling that it's probably just one of many, and probably a New Zealander person probably may or may not know much about it. I don't know. Comment if you do. You know, maybe I'm completely wrong about that. I would love it if you commented, because it shows that you've been watching at minute 49. Look at that beauty right there, that view again. Yeah, I guess I wasn't quite at Thames yet, so still a little ways to go for that. And I think I might have turned off the camera before I got. I think I get near a highway or something like that right before I get to Thames, and I didn't want to have the camera hanging out the window with my arm, you know, with a big thing like that. So I probably reined it in a little bit. So I might not be quite near there yet, anyways. But especially based on the beauty of this. But anyway, I was just kind of thinking, man, when I'm looking at a New Zealand map, originally I'm thinking in terms of, it's at Dunedin down below, and Christchurch is another city, and Wellington, Auckland. So I'm kind of thinking, oh yeah, there's only 4 cities that I'd probably even consider. When I travel, a lot of times I'm thinking of places that I wouldn't mind living in. It's because of my restless spirit, I guess, restless nature. So I'm always kind of curious what it would be like to live in certain places. I'm not saying I'm moving to New Zealand or anything like that, but I wouldn't mind if I was forced to. Of course, I would, or even if I wasn't forced to. If I had an opportunity to, I'd probably jump on that. But I don't have any plan for that. But anyway, it's just these small random towns. Like, oh yeah, this is. Could probably just throw a dart on a map of New Zealand, and wherever the dart lands, they'd be like, oh yeah, that town is probably going to be all right. Like, you can't really say that with many nations. A lot of times, you kind of want to be where everything's happening, because of lack of resources in certain places. Beauty right there again. Yeah, I'll show you some pictures of the other side of New Zealand too, and just it's quite a bit different. It's still the same beauty, but okay, yeah, right here I'm coming into some construction, so I think I think this is kind of the area where I decided to turn off the camera. So because I got my camera hanging out the window right now, and I'm just kind of filming everything. And construction worker, maybe I'm thinking more in my own cultural relative way, but that might look like a gun or something that I'm pointing out the window, like in U.S. terms. So I think I rein it in, I bring in the camera a little bit, show my legs and the way that I sit when I drive for long distances. And then I'm kind of stuck there, but you can see some of that view. That's kind of nice. So yeah, I'm kind of hiding in the camera again. You can see my rental car. Get around this. See my map to the right. Still keeping that camera in. I don't want them to see that and kind of get any wrong, funny ideas, because us Americans have to think about getting shot. Or misconceptions, misperspective. Alright, so anyways, I think I put the camera back out again, and I think pretty soon I decide that that maybe the traffic a little bit, maybe for some reason I decide I'm gonna call it a day and bring the camera inside the car again. Alright, so this is gonna be the end. I'm gonna be putting the camera away. If you made it all the way to the end and you watched the whole 55 minutes, just say it on the comments. Say, yeah, I watched all 55 minutes. Yeah, you kept my attention. Whatever. Say whatever it is. There's me trying to put the camera away right there, so I have to turn it off, trying to struggle while I'm driving with cars coming in. And please subscribe to the channel and show some love and some support.